Live to Niall Stanage, White House columnist for The Hill in Washington, D.C. US-UK-Australia defence agreement. We'll talk about that in just a tick, Niall, but what a mistake this is. They're very quick words to say it's a mistake, but the outcome just catastrophic.
Absolutely, just an absolutely tragic outcome. At least 7 children were killed in that strike. I mean, of course, the US can express regret if it wants to, but it doesn't change the outcome for those unfortunate people involved and their bereaved families. Sometimes I think the rather dry language of military operations doesn't really capture the full horror of this. Just a catastrophe, really.
And it sort of just goes to the fairly jumbled, fairly chaotic, shambolic exit of Afghanistan.
Yes, unfortunately, it's pretty much seen as consistent with that withdrawal that you rightly call shambolic. I mean, it has been a very bad period for the United States, as it firstly completely underestimated the strength of the Taliban, completely overestimated the strength of the now deposed Afghan government, and was also seen to be caught on the hop in terms of the logistics of the withdrawal. We all remember those terribly chaotic scenes around the airport in Kabul in particular. So a very bad stretch for the United States in its final days in Afghanistan, and this catastrophic error resulting in these killings, really a new nadir in that process.
Niall, huge story this week, and of course around the world, the US-UK-Australia defence agreement. The French aren't happy because there was a deal done on submarines here in Australia, and that's not on the table anymore. We've got China unhappy, of course, and many other parts of this region, including Indonesia. What is the US getting out of this, and what does it say about President Biden's foreign policy?
Well, I think the US is getting a strengthening of its alliance to counter China. That is something that President Biden has talked about in broad terms a lot. Obviously, this binds Australia closer to the United States. This deal is a very important one. As I understand it, Australia is only the second nation after the UK with which the US is going to share this technology about nuclear-powered submarines. So I think it's a consolidation of the American sphere of influence in your part of the world, extending up toward China. But obviously, as you say, the French are not happy. I didn't realize they'd withdrawn their ambassador from Australia. They've also withdrawn their ambassador from here in Washington. That has just been announced. So they're not happy, and the Chinese, as you rightly say, are not happy either.
What's your report card on President Biden in this time in office?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, in terms of the things he has got right, I suppose the response to COVID, certainly in the early months, was considered quite strong. He has helped to some degree a bit of a normalization after President Trump's time in power. But these, the Afghanistan withdrawal has been a really big setback to him. And in the wake of that, we have seen his approval ratings fall significantly. As with any politician and any president, much will depend on the economy and where that goes. It's a mixed report card for President Biden so far.
How much of a positive is it for him to be a pro-climate change politician in contrast to his predecessor?
You know, I think that the environment continues to sort of rise up the rankings of political importance in this country. And I think that that is something that Biden is at least more cognizant of than his predecessor. His predecessor was clearly a skeptic of certainly man-made climate change. So, you know, Biden is trying to at least foreground that issue more. But of course, the whole nature of climate change is that it is a process that takes place over a very long period of time. So what we do today, even if it was the right thing, won't have beneficial effects for some time to come. Meanwhile, we're experiencing all these rather extreme weather events here, from droughts in the west to floods in the east, which none of those are great developments, obviously.
What about the latest COVID situation? Continues to be a pandemic of the unvaccinated, particularly in the United States.
Yes, pretty much so. We're running at about 150,000 new cases a day here, but regionally there are very significant differences. I mean, to make a long story short, the southern states of the United States are broadly being the worst affected by the Delta variant. Other areas that are honestly of more liberal or democratic leaning politics in the northeast have been not as badly affected, and that tracks very closely with vaccination rates. It's not a universal relationship, but it is certainly those are the broad contours of it, and the coronavirus continues to be a serious worry throughout the country.